Good evening, America, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you as always from Washington, D.C. and the WiredToFishCoffee.com studios. You know what? Wired to Fish Coffee is the official coffee of Just the News. It's also my favorite coffee. And you can go right now to WiredToFishCoffee.com and get a fantastic 10% discount on their two great blends or other great items like the Just the News Yeti Tumbler. That's pretty cool. Also, every time you make an investment in their coffee, they reinvest in both Christian and conservation efforts all around this country. What a great group of people. So you're not only going to drink good coffee, you can do good with each cup you drink. All right, we've got a great show for you today. We're going to do a deep dive. Rather than the normal headlines, we're going to do a deep dive tonight on how President Trump's energy agenda is going to take shape and also how that agenda actually affects every other thing downstream from it. National security, economic security, fighting inflation. The president, all through the campaign and including in his acceptance speech last Tuesday night, made clear that you start with energy and everything else falls into place behind it. Over the next hour, we're going to look at all of those different pieces, how they fit together, what surprises a Trump second administration may have. But before we get to all of that, let me turn to my amazing co-host, Amanda Head, for some headlines. Amanda, how are you today?
Yes, boy. This is my first time back in my studio since before the election. So it's brings things into perspective. Great week. We're starting off here. All right. So as you said, we are taking a deep dive into President Trump's energy agenda this hour. But we're also going to talk a little bit about how Democrats are already trying to thwart it. They are already laying the groundwork for this. First, the media is getting involved. CNN's chief climate correspondent, Bill Ware, is already extremely concerned about what a second Trump presidency is going to do to the planet. So let's save this clip that we're about to play, and then we're going to play it back in 4 years and see if what he says actually comes to pass. Take a look.
President-elect Donald Trump is a known climate denier, vowing to pull the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord a second time. His election comes on the heels of startling new data showing the worsening effects of delaying action.
This year, 2024, according to Copernicus, the European Space Union, will shatter all records, being the warmest ever. And it's the first year where we've blown past the 1.5 degrees Celsius or 3 degrees Fahrenheit limit of the Paris Climate Accords. Every country in the world says we're going to try to hold the line at 1.5. And now we're here, just as maybe the most notorious climate denier in history takes power once again.
Very unbiased reporting from CNN. But if you can believe it, it actually gets worse from there, because Ware was on another CNN show where he said this.
Bill, 2024 will be the first calendar year to exceed the Paris Agreement threshold. What does it mean for the planet?
Well, that line, that 1.5 degrees Celsius or 3 degrees Fahrenheit, was the idea that anything beyond that, it'd just be so hard to adapt and to do it in time. Once we hit 2%, if you think things are bad now, imagine the hell on earth that would be 3 degrees of global warming. Well, Donald Trump is basically saying, go to hell, go to that hell, because he doesn't want to even acknowledge the existence of the problem.
Again, let's save that clip and revisit it in 4 years to see if we are actually experiencing hell on earth after President Trump's second term. Something tells me that that's not necessarily going to be the case, and I don't see anyone from CNN or anybody on the left divesting from their oceanfront properties. Do you? Nope. And also, the UN's climate summit, COP29, started on Monday of this week, and Biden administration climate diplomat John Podesta addressed President Trump's victory.
Last week's outcome in the United States is obviously bitterly disappointing, particularly because of the unprecedented resources and ambition President Biden and Vice President Harris brought to the climate fight. In January, we're going to inaugurate a president whose relationship to climate change is captured by the words hoax and fossil fuels. He's vowed to dismantle our environmental safeguards and once again withdraw the United States from the Paris Agreement. That is what he has said, and we should believe him.
Sounds like we are going to be hearing a lot about the supposed negative consequences of President Trump's energy policies these next 4 years. So let's make sure that we hold these people to their word and check back to see just how catastrophic or not the president's energy policies turn out to be. So, John, I'm going to hand it back to you so that we can get to our first guest of the evening and have all of these conversations about energy.
I'm always amused when I hear about the Paris Climate Accords because 194 countries signed it. Everybody went in on it. It didn't have any effect. Why? Because if you let China blow all that coal up into the air, what do you think is going to happen? By the way, under President Trump, carbon emissions actually went down, even as energy expansion went up and gas prices went down. So we actually had affordable energy that was cleaner. Stick that into the Paris Climate Accords. Maybe that might work in the future. But I just get it. I'm always amazed by it because the record of the Paris Climate Accord is everybody was in on it and it didn't have any impact. So maybe that's why we dropped out the first time.
It was just a name.
It's just a name. That's right. It's an opportunity to get together in nice locations and have a conference. That's what it's really about. Oh, my goodness. Oh, well, listen, we need a dose of good common sense after watching those three clips. And why not start with one former member of Congress who always gave us common sense. He was the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee. Today, he has one of the most popular, one of my favorite podcasts, named right after him. He is our good friend, former Congressman Doug Collins. Congressman, good to have you back on the show.
Great to be with y'all.
I'm always amused by the left and its climate scare tactics because it actually got everything it wanted in the climate Paris Accord, and they didn't hit any of their numbers. Isn't the Accord itself a self-realization of failure?
Oh, it is. What always amazes me about the folks in the climate, especially the Democratic Party, is also they seem to have amnesia for the last almost 4 years. Joe Biden and Vice President Harris, it didn't work for the election. It doesn't work for anything else. Amnesia doesn't work when you've been in control of the climate. You put us into every crazy thing. You passed New Green Deal. You've done all these things, and yet it went up on your watch, not Trump's watch, over the past 3 years. Did we forget that? Did y'all not doing something? And also, isn't it interesting, John, Amanda, that they always seem to have these climate conferences in some faraway country? Azerbaijan, I saw, was there.
Yep.
Why don't they just do this in one of the conference rooms in New York? I mean, save people money. The people are already there. Do it right there. No, they would rather fire up the jets, the private jets,
That's
and
right.
everything else, and go to a place like Azerbaijan and do their climate codes there. Look, this is just, there is a climate issues that we deal with. We deal with them in common sense ways. We realize that America, if we stop producing tomorrow, does not bring into line these global requirements of this, quote, Paris Agreement. These are the kind of things we have to realize, that you can't let China and third world countries do whatever they want and only punish basically the American economy.
Yeah, such a great point.
Absolutely. Congressman, I feel like it would pour heaping coals on Democrats' heads if President Trump was able to do what they have been trying to do with respect to carbon emissions. And as we were just talking about, no matter how much you reduce it across the globe, as long as China and India are doing the same things that they are doing, which China right now is putting one coal-fired power plant on the grid, I think, per week. So until we do something about that, nothing can happen. Now, we know President Trump's abilities in deal making and pressuring countries to do things that they are supposed to be doing. What can President Trump do with respect to China that could bring down the carbon emissions? And then by the end of his term, he can say, hey, guys, it was actually me who did it, not your green energy plan.
Yeah, I think let's first start off with what we have here, and that's our natural gas supply. Natural gas is clean. It's much cleaner than any other thing, and we're sitting on just massive amounts. Let's put our natural gas back out into the place, replacing some of the areas and in certain, especially Eastern Europe, Western Europe, other places, making sure that they have an adequate supply at a lower cost. And I think that's one of the issues that we can look at. But I will not take the left seriously on climate change until we embrace nuclear, period. Until we embrace things like hydrogen fuel, nuclear energy, those kind of things. I don't take them as seriously as they claim that we're so unserious. If they are so unserious about what they're doing and they only want to continue to lead us down a path of wind and solar and things that frankly just do not have the capacity to lead the, much less our normal everyday existence in our homes, can you think about how they would try to do that with data processing center, these data banks that require as much for one building as much as a city in kilowatt hours? They don't know what they're talking about. And if they're not willing to embrace the nuclear options of nuclear energy, hydrogen energy, then I really, frankly, just dismiss them as basically they're climate denying in a different way.
Yeah, that's a great point. Nuclear plus natural gas would bring down carbon emissions and make energy more plentiful far quicker and far less expensively than the way that the Biden-Obama team did it. It's just remarkable. You're beginning to see a little bit of the president's team take shape. A key appointment in the last 24 hours, Lee Zeldin, former congressman from New York, former colleague of yours. I think you guys worked together in debunking some of the Russia collusion stuff. Him being at the EPA, a place where it's the holy grail of the green environmental movement, although it often is really just a tripping point for any progress economically. What do you think he could do at a place like EPA?
Well, I think maybe, start off by doing as best he can to slim down this organization and get it right sized. Again, that's going to be difficult. There's a lot of government unions and other things to think about. But let's say you don't have to fund. You don't have to fill positions. There are things that you can do to get this agency back into a right size. How is it that the EPA is so outsized when you have EPAs in every 50 states and we're having duplicate measures being brought by federal and state and local standards? The other issue, we always see EPA is dealing with the environmental protection, clean air, clean water, which no one in the world wants to have dirty water or dirty air. That's a lie perpetrated by the left whenever we talk about reasonable regulations. But the EPA has also been at the forefront of stopping businesses through, smokestack rules, through other phosphorus rules, other things like that for water that have basically killed industries or caused massive fines. That's what I hope that Lee will be able to get a control over, to the point now to where they're making rules at EPA that can't actually be tested in the real world. I don't know if you know this, but they have some water standards that cannot be actually tested in the real world. They're such low numbers that they can't be done on a normal sample from a lake or stream.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. And that actually is a perfect segue into my question. Do you anticipate, I know that everybody is really stuck on someone like RFK Jr. to have a hand at maybe HHS or something that's health related, but he's also one of these people who he does have some controversial yet innovative ideas in the green energy sector. And I know President Trump has said we're going to leave him far, far away from that. But is there a way to kind of work in some of his more innovative ideas?
Well, my question is why do we leave ideas off the table? Some may not work. Some are just not going to happen. But I happen to remember a certain inventor who actually did the light bulb and other things who said the quicker I make mistakes, the quicker I get to the solution. And I think that's our problem in government right now. We have such a lag time, whether it be healthcare, whether it be our energy resources, whether it be the differences of how we can actually put things into process and work, that we're actually becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I think I would hope that we would take in any ideas, look at it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, we move on to something else. And I think that's where new voices in our party can help us while we don't move away from conservative ideas. And I think that's also a concern that many people have as well.
Yeah, you can stick to your values and still make progress, and that would be the holy grail of this next administration, next Congress. Real quickly for you, sir, as you look out over the next 3 months, what are the biggest challenges that President Trump 47 is going to face?
It's going to be, I think it's going to be not just getting his first executive orders done, and those need to happen, and there need to be multiple stacks of them on the border, other things. But also, I think it's going to be a coming awakening moment for Congress. And you and I, all three of us have talked about this before. If the House of Representatives cannot get 218 votes and the Senate cannot get their one, they're going to have 53. They got to have, more. If they can't come together and pass the best Trump supported conservative ideas that we have, that could be the biggest problem we have. We're not going to get 100% of everything, especially with the cloture rule in the Senate. But if we don't try, then we never get anything, and Donald Trump will become very frustrated.
That is such a great piece of advice. You got to get it done. Got to move the ball down the field.
That's it.
As always, sir, it's a great honor to have you on the show. We always learn something when you come on, and we also love your show, the Doug Collins Podcast. Folks, go download it. It is fantastic. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I want to introduce you to a man who's revolutionizing the energy grid in America. That's right. He's actually changing how electricity is being distributed, one of the great challenges we face in the future. Nathan O with us right after these messages.
Welcome back to Just the News and No Noise, everybody. Tonight we are taking a closer look at America's energy policy now that President Trump has won a second term in the White House. And one huge part of that new energy policy is going to be innovation, especially around powering artificial intelligence, for example. So just how are the United States going to be able to do that? Joining us now to talk about that and more is the president and CEO of VoltaGrid, Nathan Oh. Nathan, thanks so much for joining us.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Yeah, good to have you.
Boy, I mean, when we talk about innovation, VoltaGrid is doing some incredible things. Our audience might not be familiar with your company, though, so tell everybody what you guys do.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, happy to tell the story. We started the company back kind of in Q1 2021, almost as a startup out of a garage in Houston, Texas. Have subsequently grown that company to just over a $3 billion enterprise across the U.S., predominantly powering both the oil and gas industry and investing very heavily into the AI data center space, building power infrastructure across the U.S. So just an incredible growth story. Have added over 800 employees over the last, call it really 24 months, and just a really, really interesting American growth story and an American entrepreneur story.
It is stunning. It's remarkable. And I think a lot of people think of the updating the electric grid as it's a massive public works project that could take a decade or 2 decades, but you've made this quick and efficient. And what's happening now is like you have companies coming to you, right, that want to build a grid just for their plant or their data center and not even necessarily have to go to the public utility to get started. Tell us about that dynamic. It's very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity. And so if you think about it, a conventional grid in the United States probably takes somewhere between 6 to 10 years to push through the regulatory process, the permitting process, the capital process, and then you have to build it, right? Which will really take you around the better part of 10 years. What I can tell you as innovative companies like ourselves that are directly engaged, boots on the ground, we're building 200-300 megawatt power plants or microgrids across the U.S., both for our oil and gas customers, a ton of stuff going on in Texas right now, all the way to our data center customers who are really trying to win the U.S. AI race. We're building city-sized power plants and city-sized microgrids within the better part of 9 to 12 months. Really shaving about 90% of the time off of that expansion and doing it at a fraction of the cost. And so ultimately you think about it, the opportunity for the American energy machine to win the race and having multiple kind of sectors in the U.S., both in the shale oil and gas industry, colliding with the data center industry to kind of be a perfect marriage across both sectors, and pull in kind of entrepreneurs like VoltaGrid and just a full team that can go behind it. I think it's just going to, truly extrapolate the opportunity set that lies ahead for us, and couldn't be more excited about it, and have really found the blueprint for success.
Yeah, that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. Nathan, I continue to hear energy experts, though, talk about AI with respect to the pressure that it is going to place on our electrical system or on our power system. Has there ever been anything in history that has had that same impact on our grid? Because, we're having to scramble at this point because of the increased pressure. Has there ever been anything else, any outside technology or anything that has had a commensurate amount of impact on the grid?
I don't think like you're seeing on the AI boom, and quite honestly, it's not even a function of the raw amount of power, the absolute amount of power that's coming. It's the speed of which that power is getting put onto the grid. You think about it, you have more data center demand being permitted or trying to get brought onto the grid on the west side of San Antonio than you do the entire city of Austin consumes in power, the entire city. And so you think about it, the conventional grid wasn't designed for the level of power demand that's being required. And so innovative solutions are required. There's no function where the US grid can handle what's about to be put on it. And it's not just data centers. It's the EV transition. It is the onshoring of manufacturing back into the US, which I think we're going to see a boost on that over the next 4 years. And so you have this perfect collision of data center plus EV plus onshore manufacturing on top of the other 10 things that are electrifying around the US. And And so you're seeing these power demand growths just go through the roof, and all the way to the point where there is no power left in some industrial regions. And so you're going to see microgrids become a bigger and bigger play with that. And that's going to be a function of small modular reactors, but ultimately that product isn't coming for 10 years. Most of the SMR deals that have gone through. And so natural gas and utilizing, on the backstop of the American shale industry, a boom is coming, and it's really going to be exciting to watch, because it's going to be innovation at its best and entrepreneurship at its best to go solve this gap.
Man. I have bumped into people in the last few weeks who said you're like the Elon Musk of the power grid, that you so disrupted the model to a level of innovation that I think few people could actually think of when it started. What you're sitting around one day saying, I'm just going to go build grids that are 90% quicker, cheaper, faster than what got you into this? Because it's such an amazing ascent at what you've created.
Well, I have a great garage, and it definitely started there.
They always start in the garage, don't they?
Yeah.
They always talk garage. You gotta have a good garage.
Yeah.
Look, I think I gave a speech today at a big pension plan conference here in New York, and I called it American Inc. Right? Like you unleash American Inc. To do a job. All right, and you set up the right entrepreneurs that have the push and the drive to achieve something, and you fund that idea, and it fundamentally can stand on its own two legs. The machine works, and the machine is desperate for good projects to go and finance and develop. And I think what we've done is just taken the hassle out of the equation. We've locked up the supply chain. Yeah. We've got a phenomenal story, a great set of team members. We've brought manufacturing back into the U.S. We've got two very large assembly facilities, one in Houston, one in Dallas. That look, we've put the pieces of the puzzle together, and the customer's there, and I think just it's almost like going back to the basics. And I think the world got so caught up in going in 5 different directions, but if you pull things back and design a structure that works, American Inc. is behind you, and it's go time. Like, we are going to ride this as hard as we can go, and we're not going to look back.
It's amazing.
Awesome.
Amazing story.
Nathan, we kind of touched on this a moment ago, but I kind of want to get into the nitty gritty. As we have seen these recent hurricanes across the Southeast, the American people, America Inc., as you were just talking about, left, right, center, I think everyone has been collectively horrified at how slow and inadequate the response was by our federal agencies. You guys, I want to get into the nitty gritty of your disaster response, because you guys have the ability to get in there, to move your equipment in there, and boom, people have power right away. Can you talk about it?
Yeah, look, we're a big player in the demand response market for hurricanes. We've got a large facility in Houma, Louisiana, plays a very key role in hurricane response. As we all know, the Houma region took a direct hit from a hurricane this year. And our power facility there is a 25 megawatt facility, played a very instrumental role in energizing the city far in advance of what a grid repair project would implement. And so I think you're going to see that success story. That's our first site. You're going to see that success story start rolling out right across the lower part of the US and probably up the coast. And look, couldn't be happier to do it. Our government partners have been fantastic. The local community has been fantastic, and you just wait to see. There is a lot of good American-made product that's going to start hitting the shelf here very soon in the demand response market.
It's pretty darn amazing. Going to be a revolution in the energy industry that a lot of people thought might take a decade or 2 decades to get started. It's going to take days and weeks and months now. I want to ask one thing. I care about the outdoors. I'm an outdoorsman. I care about conservation. VoltaGrid also has created impressed a lot of people by being able to cut emissions, even as you're putting up one of these rapid power generation plants and mini grids. Tell us a little bit about how you achieve emissions reductions, even while rapidly building something like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think as the world looked a lot towards solar and wind as potential power sources, and I think all renewables play a role. I talk more about energy addition than I talk about energy transition. And so one of the things we focused a ton on is emitting that we will emit, but solving for the emissions that are coming off. And so we've done a ton of work on air scrubbers and kind of air mitigation to get ourselves to be one of the lowest carbon dispatchable resources out there. So just to give you a proxy, an example, for the lion's share of our emittance, we're reducing that anywhere from 95 to 99% right across the board. And you're seeing that show up in our permitting process, where we've reduced a typical 200 to 300 megawatt power plant. We've reduced that permitting process from 3 to 4 years. We just got a site permitted in Texas in 21 days.
That's crazy.
Which is fundamentally breaking people's thought process of how the market is going to play out. You think about a 200 meg power plant's enough for a city of 150,000 people. We did it in 21 days.
That is stunning.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the innovation. I love the technology. America is back, baby.
You do have fun, don't you?
Absolutely.
That's what I learned about you. Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. Incredible. Nathan O, President and CEO of VoltaGrid, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Love what you guys are doing.
Great stuff.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. Coming up after the break, we're going to explain how President Trump's energy agenda can help the environment as well. That's next.
Hey, folks, for more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, standing behind their service and their values as a company. They are an example of putting the cause ahead of profits, and it's why I'm proud to partner with them. Right now, you can get their Every Friday Matters special today. Patriot Mobile is giving away a brand new smartphone when you make the switch. So Patriot Mobile offers exceptional nationwide coverage, giving you access to all 3 major networks without your dollars funding the left. When you switch to Patriot Mobile, you're supporting free speech, religious freedom, the sanctity of life, Second Amendment, and so much more. Their 100% U.S.-based customer service team makes switching easy. Keep your number, and for a limited time, get a free smartphone. Go to patriotmobile.com/justnews or call 972-PATRIOT and use the promo code FRIDAY. Again, you're going to get a free smartphone. Offers eligible only with the promo code FRIDAY. This is a limited time offer until supplies run out. Terms and conditions apply. Join me. Make the switch today. PatriotMobile.com/justnews. That's PatriotMobile.com/justnews or call 972. Welcome back, America. There's an energy revolution that's going to take place. And when President Trump says drill, baby, drill, you know what he means. But also, when you study the first Trump administration, there was a great phenomenon. Carbon emissions went down under President Trump, and he has made clear that he can achieve that, continue to bring carbon emissions down without harming the economy, a combination of natural gas, nuclear, and other things, potentially creating an extraordinary marriage for Americans in this country. Our next guest has been on the forefront of this debate for a long time. He's the president of the American Conservation Coalition. He's also the author of one of my favorite books, The Conservative Environmentalist. He's our good friend, Benji Backer. Benji, good to have you back on.
It is great to be here, especially after a successful week, and excited to talk about the future of American energy.
It's hard to believe it was a week ago already. It goes by so fast. This is going to be an extraordinary moment because everything in this world is going to touch energy. And if President Trump gets it right, it has a downstream effect on almost every aspect of our lives. You saw some things in there, the debate and heading into the final weeks of the election. It gave us some clues about President Trump's ability to make energy more affordable, more abundant, but also continue to make it cleaner.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, Donald Trump has an opportunity to do what Richard Nixon did as well, which is cement his legacy as one of the best environmental presidents in U.S. history. He's got 4 years to do it. And one of the things that he really can do here is meet the growing demand for energy that we have in this country and around the world with American energy of all sources. You know, I'm a big believer that we shouldn't be picking winners and losers. There's pros and cons to every single energy source and pretty much every decision we make in general in life. And we need to have an energy renaissance in America that is focused on a diverse set of energy sources. Oil and gas is cleaner here in the United States than anywhere else in the world. Nuclear is obviously a very important part of it as well, that the Democrats really didn't propose any support for recently. We also have the importance of a combination of wind, solar, geothermal, hydropower as backup, secondary energy sources, and taking that power away from China, which dominates pretty much the entire supply chain for those energy sources. So a real opportunity to create an energy renaissance, but not just on energy, but also on environmental protection. Our nature and our environment, things that conservatives care a lot about. He could put together a really positive package of policies around those issues too, and we can really make this issue a conservative issue again, which would eventually make it nonpartisan like it used to be.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah. Benji, John mentioned at the top the energy revolution, and you are one of those people who's contributed to that. I mean, I don't think anybody can argue against that. You even went into the belly of the beast. Last time I spoke to you, you had been on campus at Harvard talking about your book and speaking to people who have some pretty wonky green energy ideas on the other side of the aisle. Do you feel like those conversations that you had with especially young people with regards to energy, the debunking that you constantly were doing with respect to President Trump's and the Republicans' energy policies, do you feel like that made an impact in this election?
Absolutely. I mean, our activists, the 55,000 people around the country that we have supporting us, are all people who believe in energy pragmatism is really what this comes down to. The belief that we can have, affordable, reliable energy, but also, increasingly clean energy. We all want clean air and clean water. We want our air to be as clean as possible. Obviously, pollution from energy is something that we can try to limit. And young people actually are starting to get that there is a much bigger conversation around this than just solar and wind only versus drill baby drill only. That false dichotomy that we've been given over the last few decades is something that is going away within my generation. Younger people do not see natural gas or oil as a negative, like you probably think they do, but they also don't see nuclear as a negative. They don't see any of these things as a negative.
Yeah.
In analogy will help us reduce emissions through the different energy sources. And I think, young people around the country, which I've been talking to since my book came out in April at about 40 different college campuses, are waking up to that reality. And it's only going to continue, especially if Donald Trump can lead by example here.
Yeah, so important. We've talked in the past about nuclear. It seems like nuclear natural gas gets us much quicker to not only reduction targets, but to more plentiful energy, which those hungry AI machines are going to need. All these data centers cropping up in the world. Talk a little bit about balancing the growing appetite for energy that's going to accelerate with being able to produce it quick enough to meet that demand.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. I mean, I live in Arizona, as you can tell from the gecko behind me, probably. But, this is a state where energy demands are expected to double in the next decade. And, solar and wind can't do it alone, but neither can the current, natural gas and nuclear, supply that we have. So we're going to need to expand energy in America, in Arizona, and abroad to all 49 of the other states, not abroad internationally. We need to take all that stuff back. So, AI, I think, is a really good connective tissue between people who have believed that we can pick winners and losers of energy, and that those of us who have been living in reality, because everyone knows that AI takes up a lot of energy. When you tell them, it kind of makes sense.
Right.
It takes up a lot of energy to power all these things. People want affordable energy. It's at the cornerstone of our livelihoods. It's as close to a need as we have in America and around the world. You can't do that without nuclear or natural gas. And like I alluded to earlier, our natural gas is cleaner than anywhere else in the world. If you can decrease emissions by half by doing natural gas in the United States versus Venezuela or Ecuador or these other countries that California is importing fossil fuels from now because they don't do it themselves, if you can cut it by half, then you're actually saving the planet, also saving people prices.
Amazing.
Well, and for our audience's reference, 300 additional gigawatts is what it takes to cover the electrical cost of AI, where the typical American household, I think, requires about 1.2 kilowatts. So it is an extreme additional pressure on our grid. The traditional grid can't carry the weight of that. But when I talk to people, they are still so concerned about the safety issue. Nuclear now compared to 20 years ago, what's the safety?
Yeah, I mean, look, the technology has gotten a lot better over the last few decades, and I can understand people's fears, and I can understand throughout history there have been some disasters, but nuclear has the least deaths or harm associated with it out of any energy source, including clean energy, but any energy source in the last 30 years. And the technology has become incredibly good. It's incredibly safe, incredibly reliable. I've toured nuclear plants and gotten as close to nuclear waste as you can get, and it is amazing the standards they have. But that's with the old technology. There's also a new technology coming online of smaller nuclear reactors, and that is even better. So the future of nuclear is incredibly bright, not only to meet our energy demands, but also provide us clean energy that doesn't and all safeguards strong.
Yeah, really important stuff. Benji, what's going on in America is one of the greatest opportunities in a generation. We're very lucky to have had your input on it and all the great work you've done the last year building a coalition around these great ideas. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, more discussion about what lies ahead and what challenges a new Trump administration may face. We'll have all of that right after these messages. Welcome back, America. This weekend, I happened to be up in the mountains in my cabin, and Sunday morning it was cold, it was rainy. I put on a pot of coffee, and I had a smile on my face. Why? Because for the last 6 months or so, I've been a Wired to Fish coffee user. I knocked Dunkin' Donuts out of my life after 36 years, literally 36 years. Why did I do that? Because Wired to Fish is a better tasting coffee. I never thought I'd find one better than Dunkin' Donuts. I did. But the other part about Wired to Fish that gets me excited, every time I drink a coffee, I know I'm doing some good, because Wired to Fish coffee takes its proceeds and it invests in both faith organizations, Christian faith organizations, and conservation. I'm an outdoorsman and a Christian. That matters a lot to me. Joining right now, the architect, the incredible person who put this incredible brand out in the marketplace, our good friend, Leah Thomas from Wired to Fish Coffee. Leah, good to have you back on.
John, thanks for having me.
All right. I'm excited, not only by the taste, not by all the things we've done in partnership, but every time I turn around, there's something new that Wired to Fish Coffee is getting behind to help a church, to help a conservation project with water. Tell us the latest of what you're doing.
Well, right now we're trying to get results from North Carolina on one of their greenhouse projects that they put together to put plant life back in their reservoirs for fishing. Great. And the reality is that we're ready probably for a new project going into next year. And so I just wanted to tell you a little bit about talk a little bit about conservation and about how we as people can have a good impact on things in a real way rather than just an intangible, I wish I could do something kind of way.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah. Give us some of the details about the water project, because I remember last time we had you on, you were talking about this outreach, and it's such an incredible program. I think people will want to come to the website and support it.
Yeah, well, we've got a couple projects in the water world, but domestically, we're working with North Carolina to help fund greenhouses so that they can put plant life back in their man-made reservoirs. Pollution is one of the biggest factors on the environment, and also habitat. The more we can improve the habitat of any kind of ecosystem, the better off the entire ecosystem is going to be. And so that's one of the reasons that we got behind this project was it's a project that actually changes the environment for North Carolina and not only makes it a better place for fish, but where their fishing's better and the plant life's better, the animal life's better, and the overall quality of life improves.
Yeah. And fishing turns out to be better too, something I learned for sure. That's the best part about it. It sounds so simple, right? That putting plant life and aquatic plants back into the water makes a difference, but they're really important natural filters to the water. And in an era where we actually haven't focused on it, we've lost a lot of that natural filtration. So this is a project that once it gets started, it's a gift that keeps on giving, correct?
Correct. And it also allows us to get rid of plants that don't belong there. There are invasive species, as you probably know, John, in a lot of the reservoirs around the United States. And the more that we can get rid of those, we can also allow our own natural habitat to flourish. And so That's probably a secondary goal of that project, is not only to create good fish habitat, but also to get rid of plant life that's invasive, that is just not good for any waterway.
Yeah, good point.
You guys do so much for your customers. You do so much for the earth, but you also do a lot for the kingdom. And I know that everybody at your company, you consider this a ministry through these parachurches and spreading the love of Christ. Talk to our audience about that.
Yeah, we're really passionate about improving lives of people, in addition to just everybody likes to fish and improving the environment. We have a parachurch that we're working with. They put water filters into the slums of Nairobi. They'll be going back again at the end of January. And so we really want to finish strong the end of 2024 so that we can load them up with filters. When they deliver these filters to the slums of Nairobi, where people are literally drinking water that has been urinated in and has all kinds of fecal matter in it, they also tell them about Jesus. And not only do they tell them once, they go back again to make sure that they know how to use the filters, and then they continue to make sure that they know they are loved by God and that they make a difference on earth and their lives matter. And that's really the reality of it, is like everything matters that God made. We matter. The people that are in the slums of Nairobi with horrible water matter. The reservoirs matter, and that's just really the passion behind the brand. Is it doesn't take more than one or two people to move a mountain if they really want to move it. And so our message is we're going to move some mountains, and we want people to help us move them. And I know there's people out there that have a passion for that too.
All right. It's just amazing. I love to hear that. I woke up this week and also realizing not only did I have a good cup of coffee in my hand, but oh my gosh, it's only 7 weeks to Christmas. You got Thanksgiving around the corner, Christmas around the corner. A lot of fun ways to make Wired to Fish coffee a Christmas and holiday gift for folks. What are some of the more popular ideas you got on your site right now?
Well, right now we only have drinkware and coffee combos, but we do have some fun cups that are Christmas driven that should be available here in about a week or so.
Exciting.
And we're going to be adding some ornament combos for anglers and for believers and for people that just really like coffee. Another thing that we're going to do this month is for every person that buys your mug coffee combo, John.
Yeah.
Well, not every person. They'll be entered. Every person will be entered to get a Yeti coffee press.
Ooh.
So I think that'll be really fun, because we're just going to randomly grab a few people who order your combo and throw a Yeti coffee press in their box for them. And maybe they want it, maybe they can gift it, but they're pretty cool. And it's just a nice way to say thanks to you and your audience for supporting Wired to Fish Coffee.
I love that. And also, coffee presses are becoming back. They're making a big comeback. I see everybody using them. Even at a hotel the other day, we're using it. They're the hot new rage, aren't they?
I love them. I only use them camping because it does take a little bit more effort than putting a pod into a pot. But boy, the difference is amazing.
Oh, you aren't kidding.
Yeah. And a lot of us, I think we are called woo-woos now, are paying much more attention to microplastics. So we're moving away from coffee makers towards things like that. So I think that's just fantastic. Tell everybody again where they can find out all about, especially John Solomon's package. And in order to get entered into the drawing for that, if you are John Solomon's co-host, do you have a better chance? I'm just kidding.
No
nepotism here.
right. No, come to wiredtofishcoffee.com. You can see the URL at the bottom of the screen here. We have a variety of coffee combos, but if you pick one of John's, you'll get your name thrown in the hat for the coffee press. And we always like to throw a few little extra goodies in the box anyhow for your audience. We're just super grateful for the massive level of support that we've received from them.
Yeah, we're super grateful for you, Leah, and all you've done. You not only make a great cup of coffee, you do good with every cup of coffee. That just makes me feel awesome. Great to count myself among your friends. Great product, folks. Go to wiredtofishcoffee.com right now. And if you use the promo code JustNews, you also get 10% off all the great stuff. I've got my favorite. I love the tin mug. I got to tell you, when I was up in the cabin, I was tapping on the deck all day. I don't know why, but it just felt so cool. So go check it out today. And also, if you get that VIP tumbler package, you'll get the tumbler, 2 bags of coffee, and a full year of VIP access to Just the News. That means no ads and a once-a-month meeting with me where I can answer your questions. Go check that out. That's only $55 right now. All right, we'll be right back to wrap up today's show right after these messages.
Welcome back to Just the News, No Noise. Time to wrap up with some final thoughts. John, we are 1 week out from President Trump winning his second term in office. As you have had time to let it marinate and soak in for the last 7 days, what do you see for this country? A lot of people are talking about a golden age with energy. I mean, President Trump, in conjunction with people like a lot of our guests tonight, have such incredible, innovative ideas that I think could really make a difference.
Yeah, listen, I think you're right. I think when you see the early team that President Trump has assembled, he has a bunch of no-nonsense people. People are just going to get it done. They don't need drama. They don't need to have their ego flanned. They just simply want to get things done. And they have this sense of purpose and, I think, sense of mission that we haven't seen. Washington's so famous for getting tied up in a lot of things that don't matter, right? We have debates that don't matter. The people that Donald Trump is surrounding himself with, the Elon Musks and the Lee Zeldins and the Tom Homans, they're just get it done sort of people. And I think that you're already seeing the bridges to immediate action. He hasn't even taken office yet. You've got the European Union saying, I'll buy some of that natural gas that we didn't want to buy from Joe Biden. You've got foreign countries reaching out to him, having conversations about how do we solve the hostilities. I think you're going to see on January 20th, which is normally the traditional starting point for administration, they're going to be running at 100 miles per hour because they've just surrounded themselves with get it done people. They don't care about the publicity. They don't care about the press releases. They don't care about the book parties or the dinner parties. They care about getting a record achieved while they're in office. And I think that that's what struck me in the first week.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to ask you about the date that is all burned in our head, or that is burned in all of our heads now. The date that is 2 weeks before inauguration, January 6th. I hear a lot of folks out there very, very stressed out and concerned that there's going to be something that transpires between now and then, or maybe on that day. Do you anticipate any type of dust up?
I don't right now, just from talking to both sides. Listen, I think there's two things that are different about this election in 2020. The losing side knows that they lost, and they know they lost good, right? They lost big. And sometimes when you lose that big, you have a sense of humility that you didn't have heading in. And so I think this isn't a race where people say, oh, it was so close. It just wasn't close, right? And I think the second part of it is Donald Trump's people they're not looking backwards. They don't care about the optics or the anniversary anymore. Listen, he's going to pardon a lot of the January 6th defendants, I suspect, when he gets into office. But they're worried about January 21st and 22nd and 23rd. How can they make a difference really quickly? I think behind the scenes, the president's beginning to have some conversations with world leaders and financial markets leaders to figure out how do we solve this inflation? How do we solve this strife in the Middle East and Russia and Ukraine? And I just don't get a sense that either side, Donald Trump's side, he's not going to be looking back at January 6, 2021. And the Democrats, I think, are trying to figure out how do we get back in the game because we lost so badly. And I don't know if you've noticed this, Amanda, a real noticeable change in tone and tenor. There just isn't that personal level of attack that Democrats levied up until November 5th. It seems to have toned down quite a bit. Do you see the same thing?
Yes, absolutely. And I also feel like I'm noticing places, at church on Sunday. It was my first time back at church since the election. And it just feels, the Kamala campaign loved talking about vibes. It just feels like the vibe is different.
That's right.
And even for people who didn't vote for Donald Trump, experiencing that mandate and observing the mandate of the popular vote going to Donald Trump and not by just a few, I think that has made a difference for people who are thinking, you know what, let's just see what happens. And I know that there are still a lot of people who are freaking out thinking that he is still, a tyrant and a fascist, but they are going to learn very, very quickly that in fact is not the case. And to that end, January 20th of 2020, XL Pipeline offline. Yeah. January 20th, 2024, XL Pipeline back online.
Yeah, well, it'll be hard to resurrect the project, right? Because it's pretty much been dry docked. But I do think the drill, baby, drill, opening up the places, getting projects into the pipeline. And then, the big riddle that even a guy like Elon Musk has had to deal with, or Bill Gates, or any of these big guys that are building data centers is how do we get the grid? Because these old-fashioned utilities tell us it's going to take 10 years. And I think in Nathan O tonight and what VoltaGrid is doing, there is an accelerant that I don't think was on the table 4 years ago. The ability to create microgrids that all snap together and not have to have a massive public works project that costs trillions of dollars That's one of the most exciting things that I've heard people in the energy sector talking about the last few weeks.
Yeah, I know that there are ideas floating all around, and of course, new appointments. It seems like every day they are just pumping out. President Trump putting out videos. Just yesterday, the video about the Department of Education. A lot of people excited about that one for sure, especially if you're a parent. Yep, and especially if you're a parent in a state that doesn't allow school choice. That is something that I think a lot of people are really, really looking forward to. That's all the time that we have for tonight, everybody. We appreciate you being here. John and I will be back here at the same time, same place tomorrow night here on Real America's Voice. But tonight, we're going to hand it over to Grant Stinchfield, and he's going to take you through the next hour. Grant, take it away.